So, hi everyone, I'm Stefano, and together with my partner Marcella, who is sitting here, we are two Italian architects living in Beijing, where we run our architectural design studio called Toutiao. I'm not here today to speak about architecture, but to share with you some insight about Instant Hutong, which is an art project we are developing since 15 years in Beijing, investigating the relationship between the built environment and the lifestyle of people living in it. So this relationship is a very dynamic one, always changing. That's from the idea of the concept of Instant Hutong as a name is coming from. And Instant Hutong is an art project made of different installation, action in the city, and so on. Is our very personal way to interact with the urban environment in which we live, meet people, share experience, collect their story, and discuss about the changes of our city and their life. The first time we came across a map of the Hutong district in Beijing was around 20 years ago. We were studying architecture in the Venice University in Italy, and we were pretty much in love with historical city center. Coming from Italy, we are used to this very dense historic city center where we live, and actually the Hutongs were representing something on one hand familiar to us, but on the other hand something completely new. So it was this very dense, iconic typology building up the whole city center of Beijing. So we start collecting books about architecture, literature, all possible information we could find at that time to know more about that. And we came also to discover the new rapid changes Beijing Hutong were facing due to the modernity. So the people that at the best were representing these changes visually with some very iconic and straight image were the artists. Here is a work of Wang Jinsong talking about space and how space was changing. And here is some performance by Gao brothers talking about human density. So gathering together, stay together, take a distance, what unfortunately today we are used to call social distancing. And this is the very first map of Beijing Hutong we were completely redraw. It's a district near Dongsushitiao, so it's called Nanshinzang. It's a block of almost 1 square kilometer. And we showed this map to our professor at that time, is Italian urbanist Bernardo Secchi, which was one of the master of contemporary city planning. And he was so surprised, and his wonder was like a child in front of a new gift. And he pushed us to go on and further discover and study this urban environment. So his teaching was about go in a city, and not just study it on books, but use your body to go through the lanes, discover the experience and touch, see, feel the city. Somehow he pushed us to move to Beijing, such we did, and we were lucky enough to meet Chinese architect Chang Yunho, who was one of the first architects at that time to recognize the value of the old little houses in old Beijing. So his slogan was "small is okay." He was opening up to us his whole concept, his approach to architecture, which was considering diversity in our city a value. Like a good city is the city where this diversity can be found. So Hutong's district, after his tales about, after his vision, appeared to us like a model of an ideal city, because there is a strong social mix. So you can find in the Hutong all the new generation living together, the rich and the poor, the local and the foreigners. And the houses, they are all small, one floor, in touch with nature. So each courtyard can potentially be like a sort of little villa inside the big city. Kids can play on the street next to home, and you have fresh products coming from the countryside and be sold on the local market. So within a walking distance of 5 minutes, you can find whatever you need in your life in the Hutongs. This sense of community was very interesting for us because it's something familiar to us as Italian. The street somehow is the extension of our home. A lot of function, a lot of lifestyle, a lot of habits are shared on our street. So we start to wonder if just showing the maps to people in the Hutongs could have in the local inhabitants the same effect that that map was creating in us and in our professor. So we decided to map different areas of Hutong district and use those maps to hang them up in front of the people and start discussing about the city. So we did think about which could be the right way to show to people. So we found this idea to embroider the map and transfer it on canvas. So it's a technique belonging to the Chinese tradition, because in the 70s was something quite common in Beijing to have this slogan embroidery on carpet. This is a big carpet we find on Panjiayuan old market. We found a lady who used to do this kind of embroidery over 40 years ago, who teach us how to transfer this technique, which is called needle punch. And we started to create these big canvases we called urban carpet and hang them around Beijing. For month after month we were hanging this carpet around Beijing. The carpets have different colors because at the first glimpse Hutong district they all look the same, a succession, a labyrinth of lanes and grey brick walls and courtyards, but in fact they are not. Each district has its own history, so each district is different. You can recognize when you run into the Hutong, some are more residential, some are more business oriented. So we hang the carpet on different lane and using all possible support we could find, especially the ropes where local Beijing people used to hang their clothes to dry. And the idea was exactly this. People could get out of their doorstep, finding this carpet in front their home. So the first effect was this Jegashishamais. So people was asking this because they found something unexpected. So for us, this Shemais is the first question we like to reach when we do our installation in Beijing, because it's the starting point of a feeling of curiosity. So from that we can start explaining, discussing with people and start sharing our experiences. So the sudden appearance of a carpet was the occasion to start this kind of spontaneous gathering of people coming out, and once they recognized it was a map, they start pinpointing the familiar points of the map, their home, their roots, their daily life. And actually when they were recognizing the map was basically belonging to their daily experience, they start also asking neighbors to come and join the happening. So we call it urban surprise, just to enlighten this idea of wonder and spontaneous gathering together. We collect many episodes related to the interaction of our work with people, so I will share with you a couple of them. So here is in Shangyukou district, is a district south of Tiananmen, Guangzhou. And this district is a little bit peculiar, like differently than other Hutong district where the lanes are running east to west. It follows a more organic shape because there were canals there. And was originally a space, an area with a lot of hostel and tea house, because many students for all other regions of China were coming there and were finding an accommodation to wait to attend the examination to become officer in the Chinese Empire. And here we met Xin Tai, which is this old, very nice lady who is over 90, and she was living in this district since when she was a child, and she was sharing with us a lot of stories about the daily life in the district, how it was changing and so on. And was one of our friends we kept going to visit in the year after. Here another little episodes. We were hanging this carpet in front of the doorstep of the house of Mr. Zhang, who came out and started nodding with his head like saying there is something wrong with it. So we were thinking he didn't like the fact that we blocked the access to his home, but in fact he came back after 5 minutes with the map of Beijing telling us that our map was wrong. In fact, it was not, because as you know, Beijing has a structure that either small house is the small copy of the bigger scheme. So when he recognized that the blue map on the canvas was not the big map of Beijing, but the big size map of his own neighborhood, he was surprised first, and then he started recognizing his home, and he started sharing with us the daily path he was doing from home to the market, to the neighbors, to his friends, the workplace, and so on. This is Mr. Ling. We met him in one of our exhibitions on the street, and he was in love with our work. So he asked us to tell him every time we were going to hang the carpets around. So the first time we hung a carpet in front of his house, where he was living with his wife. And then in one of the other exhibitions we did, he came. We were choosing this courtyard because it was a sort of abandoned space, almost demolished between two other houses. And he started to cry because he recognized in that courtyard, which was far away from where he was living at the moment, the house where he was born over 65 years before. Basically, this very personal feeling of the people with their community, the neighborhoods where they live in, was kind of giving us inspiration for the next work, which is this identity. We called it identity. Basically, we were transferring on stamp the map of a small little community made of a group of courtyards, in order to say that there is a strong relationship between the built space and your own identity. So for Chinese tradition, for Chinese people, the stamp is a very important element because it's connected to your own name. We mounted this platform of 1,500 different stamps we did. And somehow we like this new image that came from our installation to put the stamps together, because they resemble a little bit like a sort of 3D architectural model. And this gave us a little bit an inspiration for the next work, which was we used the maps of the Hutong we were designing before, and we packed them together in a sort of ideal, super dense map of a different Beijing. So maps, especially in cities like Beijing, that they are characterized by a fast pace urbanization, are unable to explain and to depict the reality. Once you do a map, you go back to the place you have just designed, and you find out that the city has already changed. So we did think about a new artwork, which we called Blinking City, how to use map on some support that can somehow represent these fast changes. And we use this special printing technique, which is called lenticular printing, developing a series of maps that change according to the movement of the viewer. And this Blinking City project even went on different media and support. So we create these changing maps also on video, in this attempt of playing with the map to express these rapid changes. So in these videos you can see houses are fading, shifting, moving in a sort of playful games of moving colors and geometries. Then we went back to the courtyards. We transferred them on the dilapidated walls you can find in some courtyard. And actually, some little note, we use this color because in urban planning, the architect used this color to describe the urban analysis. When a city is changing, so we mark a different color to explain the different character of different buildings or areas. But in this context, it became a sort of iconic idea about how the map are actually changing and how they are related to the city that is actually changing. So this idea to go back to the courtyard and start doing this kind of installations was the basis of the next work I'm going to show you, which is called Theory of Moment. So basically, we decided to go to different courtyards in Beijing and see, get inspired from the space and interact, putting around some little seed that can become and grow in something different. So we were adding little dots of colors in a gray background, or we were kind of mending some wall which was about to fall apart. We were adding mirror to play with the fact that Beijing can have this blue sky and bring it inside. So it was a kind of a very ludic and playful series of little interaction, also always trying to involve people in this kind of works. So people are always being very important for our work. For Chinese people, the public space is a very, very important one. They do any kind of possible activities on the public space in Beijing. This group of ladies were singing, but there are people playing, there are dancing. And we were thinking, when we do something, can be a space that the people in Beijing can enjoy, starting always from this Shemais effect, but also to generate surprise and interaction. So this is a group of joyful ladies singing next to where we were doing the next installation, which is this one. Just moving some bricks and adding some little element, we create little corners out from unused space that people couldn't use. In the attempt somehow to generate a sort of micro-urbanism regeneration. So starting from little intervention, you can somehow make a better space in our city. You can offer some little corner that people can use. How we for months were going around bringing the stuff in Beijing. And also this research about the material we can use on the street was also inspiring us. In Beijing there was full, till a few years ago, of a construction material market, and we were also going there to get inspired moving bricks. Actually moving bricks for months has been our main activity. Then we were curious about what modernity means also outside the urban environment. So we moved to the countryside. There is this passion we have in working on checking on Google Maps if we can find some interesting urban structure. So we found these two cities, Guangfuzhen and Liaocheng. So basically there are typical walled Chinese cities. So the two cities till 100 years ago they were pretty much the same in terms of size, but they were following in this past century two different paths. Guangfuzhen is still a little town of around 20,000 people, while Liaocheng became a big metropolis of millions of people in Shandong province. We decided to start this trip to see what modernity in terms of changes means for the two cities, but also on the territory connecting both of them. So the two cities, the distance is about 120 kilometers, and all the little dots you see in the countryside, in the territory between the two of them, each of these dots is a village. So we created this graphic to better explain, and we decided to visit in this trip of 120 kilometers long, also 120 villages to see what modernity became. You can see modernity was superimposing some new urban infrastructure like this big street, and this mix of old and new was also changing the habits of the farmers. Some new district is offered to the farmers in terms of, for example, this big billboard is depicting like this advertisement of one of the new districts that are going to be built. But it's not always a movement that is coming from above. Also, the farmers themselves, in their way to dream their future, they have this kind of urban vision in mind. So we kind of apply a similar concept to the one we were using for the urban carpet in Beijing, preparing and redrawing the maps of each village and going there to show the maps to the villagers, to discuss with them about and understanding their way and how their lifestyle was changing due to this rapid modernity and this rapid development. So we start going through the villages, interacting with people, collecting their stories also here. And also here was very important the Shemais effect to start this process of discussion together. And what we like very much in the picture is the background, because the interaction and the reaction with people in our work has always been as important as the work itself. People were bringing us to, and they were showing us the best part of their villages, the lake behind, the old temple, the places they were gathering together and so on. So we were taking these notes, and back in our studio we were then writing the notes to create a sort of document of what was the journey, what was important for them in their village. Now it's 10 years ago that this project started, and next summer we want to go there and meet the same people and see how the village was changing, like their background, but also how they were growing, how they changed in this 10-year span from when the project was started. When we say about coming back and meeting the same people living in Beijing, they said, "Are you sure you are going to find the same people again?" And actually, yes, we are sure, because this is the welcome people in the countryside was giving us. So here was also about some inspiration we get for some of our work, that sometimes they come by chance from some little detail we notice. So in one of the paths we did from a village to another, we were crossing the countryside, and we met these people, these farmers, building these sort of straw mats from the scrap of the harvest. So they use these straw mats to cover the hot houses in winter. And in winter, nature is dying, so the color was almost the same. So we start painting, adding color to the process. As also here the question was, Shemais, they didn't understand why we just stop by and adding color to what is basically part of a daily duty, a very normal things they do. But then they liked the idea, they were liking the idea to create some difference, to have some new input, and they help us to paint the mats, to adding color to the landscape. Here we go back to Beijing. So another series of installations still belonging to this Theory of Moment series. They start from single little elements we find on the daily life in Beijing. So this is called Look at My Bag. We were redesigning some element of Beijing, turning them into kind of bags and fashionable accessories people could bring around. So, and the concept here is like you take one of these fashion elements, one of these accessories, you bring them around, so is in a sort of way is your personal way to take a piece of Beijing and take care of it. This is from the Jimachou. We created this mysterious, weird object. We were hanging them up. So just putting this object there, you ask the question, what is the meaning of it? You start questioning if the space in which you live can be just considered like that, or it has a different potential, can become something different. So this installation is called Renminda Chao. We did by using the Chinese newspaper, and is an homage to Italian artist Michelangelo Pistoletto, who did a smaller ball of newspaper in the 50s, and we start rolling this big ball through the Hutongs. Also here was a way to create surprise, and also questioning the size, the space, the relationship between the urban fabrics, the urban elements. So the size of a lane, the distance between houses. People were turning around, they were seeing this kind of big ball smashing in their face, and could also create some trouble. So sometimes the ball got stuck, blocking the traffic. And people start telling us, hey, pay attention, because if police will come, such kind of installation can be really a problem. So police in the end came. So we move our ball on the side to make sure that it was not creating any trouble for the traffic. And then policemen told us, no, why you did that? Take it back, because we came just for that. And they were taking some selfies about it with our newspaper ball. So basically it was police approved. Here is the last installation I show you. Sometimes we try to create something simply surpriseful or a little bit useful, and those sometimes can just be to create a little dot of a poetic image. Here we play with this paper mache. It's a technique of paper and water, and we were playing with the gray bricks background and the typical red color of Beijing. And we think our little installation are a little bit a tool to question our daily relationship with our building environment. It's the city where when you go out of your doorstep, you are exposed to the diverse, something that you didn't expect, the unexpected. So we like the idea that with this installation we are spreading on the street of Beijing, we can also create this sense of belonging to a living and vibrant urban community. Thank you.